Welcome to The Green Rush, a podcast about the business of cannabis. On a weekly basis, hosts Ann Donahoe and Louis Goldberg talk with the CEOs, politicians, and cultural icons driving the cannabis industry forward. This week, Louis and Ann speak with Jason Mewes of Jay and Silent Bob fame, a creative partnership that was born in the 1994 Kevin Smith classic film Clerks, and that lives on today in the form of their popular podcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. Over the years, Jay has struggled with addiction issues and has used podcasting with Kevin as a vehicle for staying sober. Jay and Kevin will be appearing at this year's Emerald Cup, taking their Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast show on the road. Just a quick heads up on this one, both Louis and Ann nerd out quite a bit, so cut them some slack. Mostly Louis, but still. And before we get to the show, I'm going to tell you all about the biggest industry story of the week, because when I'm not voicing the introduction for the Green Rush podcast, I produce a couple of shows on my own, one of which gets super nerdy about marijuana news. Don't sit back, lean forward. Now on to our interview with Jason Mewes. That is right after I quickly run through my thoughts on the biggest story of the week in legal marijuana. I'll use this moment real quick to pitch my own news podcast, which you can find over at mjtodaydaily.com. During the week of December 5th, 2018, for my money, the biggest story in the industry is the quick movement that's being made in legalizing industrial hemp. Right now, the 2018 Farm Bill is in the final stages of being passed by the U.S. Congress and includes language that will finally lift the federal prohibition on industrial hemp that's for too long tied together its fate with its more medicinal and adult use oriented cousin. There's been a lot of good outlets that have covered this storyline well. In particular, I'm thinking about the team over at marijuanamoments.com, which has been all over its details as they've broken. One of the more recent twists on this one is the fact that it appears that congressional lawmakers are going to include a provision to ban anyone with a felony drug conviction from becoming a hemp farmer. So stupid on so many levels. Marijuana Moments' Kyle Yeager covered this angle well in a recent story, which I'd direct you over to for more details. The 2018 Farm Bill is not quite settled law yet, as it still needs to survive final passage through the U.S. House and Senate, but things are looking good in all the right places for the hemp legalization parts to make it through, and a final vote will take place either way before the end of the month. If industrial hemp is actually legalized at the federal level, there are going to be a lot of interesting things happening in 2019 for our industry and beyond. So that's what's going on in the industry this week.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us, man. I know it's not cool for the person interviewing the guest to like fanboy out, but it's really hard for me not to do so. I'm a little older than you, but I grew up in Jersey in the 80s, and you know what you and Kevin did with Clerks and all the other movies, especially Dogma, really spoke to me. When you guys were doing Clerks back in '94, did you have any clue as to what you were creating?
No, not at all. I mean, I feel Kevin created it really, but Kevin said, "Hey, I wrote a movie, and we're gonna shoot, and I wrote a character for you." Like we shot it, and it didn't really. Even while we were shooting, I was super nervous, so I didn't really pay attention except trying to get through the whole process because of being so nervous and just trying to just make it happen and have Kevin not be mad. And then when we were done, Kevin went and started editing it on a steam back. And I went back to work roofing and stuff, went back to my normal job that I did every day. And I didn't really think much of it. And it wasn't until after, I can't remember if he called or told me I saw him in person. I don't remember, but regardless, I just know that at some point he told me that it got bought by Miramax, and he's like, "Dude, man, our movie's going to be, on whatever amount of screens it was, 100 screens or something. People are going to see it." And I just mentioned all this because even step by step, I just was like, "Oh, cool," because I don't know, I just didn't get it. I was, I was like 18, 19, and didn't know anything about the movie business. It just didn't really register with me, and it really wasn't until Mallrats that I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." We're like, maybe this is something I can do. And then I got offered to do an independent movie, Drawing Flies, with this guy Malcolm Ingram. So I went from Mallrats to go shoot Drawing Flies, and that's really when I was like, wow, this is now this is my third movie, and maybe this is something I could do for the rest of my life as a future. And I actually thought that, but I still had to work. I actually, after Mallrats and Drawing Flies, I came home and I worked for my friend delivering pizza from his pizza place he owned.
Oh man.
Yeah, it wasn't until Dogma that I stopped working.
When you were delivering pizza, did you ever get recognized? You say, "Hey, man."
Not a whole lot, but definitely sometimes it would happen here and there. People would be like, "Hey, man, I saw you in Mallrats. You were in a movie," and then I'd be like, "Yeah, I know." Thank you. Thanks for pointing it out. But
did you get better tips when they knew who you were?
And not to no. I think everyone wanted to give me less tips. The thing is, it's funny because people don't realize when they. Again, another thing. Like I said, I didn't realize the process or what was happening. That wow, this my buddy made a movie that made it into a pretty big film festival, and then it got picked up, which is a big deal. I just didn't get it, and a lot of people where we grew up didn't get it either because. Like I came home from Mallrats and I remember people are like, "You've done 2 movies, dude. How many houses did you buy? How many cars do you own?" And it's like, dude, I got paid $2,000. I think Kevin hooked everyone up because, no one got paid for Clerks. We just did it because we thought it'd be fun. And then even after Mallrats, you get paid scale, which was I don't know. I don't remember, but it was $16,000 after taxes. You're walking with maybe $10,000. It's like, dude, I'm not buying any houses with $10,000. So I don't know. It was funny. So no, I didn't know. I really didn't realize what Kevin did and what he accomplished until I would even say again, even after Mallrats. I thought it was cool we made a studio movie and it seemed more real, but I didn't think hey, Kevin's going to make Chasing Amy, then Dogma, and Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, and other people are going to start offering me roles in independent movies and other movies and stuff. So, no, I had no idea, and it took, again, it was years later before I thought even wow, actually, this is sort of a big deal. So
well, and you and Kevin have been creative partners for more than 20 years, right? So how has your relationship changed over the years? It sounds like you were kind of helping a buddy out, and he wrote this part for you, but it really evolved into something much deeper than that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I feel like over the years I would say for years though, again, before we started doing our podcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, I feel like we've had sort of the same relationship where it was he was, he still is a hard worker and he's smart and productive person where I was just, I was just getting things done to try to survive. I would work in the movies more. For years, for most of the movies, it wasn't wow, I'm creating art. It was oh my gosh, I get to make another paycheck. That's not me delivering pizzas. But I also got strung out on drugs and, I would drink a lot and do a lot of stuff that just wasn't very productive. I was roofing and I would get a paycheck. So I'm just saying for years, it was he was the older brother who would come home from writing a script and going on tour, doing whatever with the movies or whatever it might be. And then I'd be strung out and he'd try to help me get sober. And so I feel our relationship for years and years and years was really just an older brother / uncle who was always trying to take care of me and keep me on the straight and narrow or, whatever it might have been, and just keep trying to give me work. It wasn't really till the podcast this last time that really our friendship has actually changed to where it should have been. And it's now we're actually best friends and business partners. And he says it too. He talks about it. He's talked about it on our podcast and in interviews and stuff. Our dynamic, it's crazy to think even for me stepping back. It's because I've been sober longer than I have in the past, so I'm a little more reliable on that end of things. But also, him and I have spent so much time together on the road and on the podcast I like bare my soul, where before
Yeah,
for
it's
years like
beautiful,
I'd
man.
hide everything. I was telling white lies constantly to him, so it was really hard for him to get to trust, know me, or any of that stuff. So it's really changed our relationship now.
My family is sadly also very there's a lot of issues of addiction and recovery, and I'm used to visiting family members and at treatment centers. And your podcast is great. I mean, what you talk about, you're completely honest. It's really amazing to hear you and Kevin talk about how you're dealing with what you're dealing with. This show is about cannabis, and it's about the intersection of cannabis and business and culture. And a large part of, we've talked to a lot of people about the plant and how a lot of people see it as rather than being a gateway drug, it's an exit drug from opioids. You're in recovery. Do you have any relationship with the plant now, or are you completely clean?
No, I'm totally clean. Like I haven't smoked in years. And again, it's not because I don't agree with them and cannabis and the good it does. Like, I perfect example I tell people constantly is like, my mom passed now, but she had HIV and was in a lot of pain and couldn't hold food down. So they gave her marijuana, and that was the only thing that would help her eat and hold food down. Same with my buddy who passed. He passed at 23 years old, but I knew him since I was like 5, but he got cancer. And, all the chemo and all the medicine and all that would make him sick, and he could never hold food down until they finally prescribed him cannabis. So
you can call it marijuana. You can call it whatever, man.
I'm all for it. I think it's an exit drug. I think it's a medical miracle, like all that stuff. It's just when I got sober, like, again, I relapsed. I'd get sober and then I relapsed and got sober, relapsed. And each time I would either, I'm just going to smoke. I'm just going to drink. And it had to get to a point more so for me for like a mindset of going to meetings and being accountable. Like you can't go in an NA or AA meeting and be like, hey, I'm sober 2 years, but I just got, I just smoked some, just because for them in the world of sobriety and AA and all that stuff and is no mind-altering substances. So, I just had to sort of dive deep into the recovery. So I had to just keep it away from everything, which is a bummer because honestly, I haven't even got to try. Like, again, Kevin and my wife, one of my good buddies, they, are always, we'll go to Colorado and we'll get to go into one of those stores like 7-Elevens, and it's,
dude, you live in LA. It's right there too. So it's
too, but I mean, it's like that more so now, but before it was like you needed a medical card to walk through the door. But I'm just saying, the point is like now it's like I see all the different kinds, like Skittles and OG Crack Kush and all this stuff, and it looks beautiful and smells beautiful. And I haven't even smoked since the last time I smoked it. Literally, I remember my buddy and I got like a $20 little thing. It was like literally seeds and stems and dark as a tree, an actual an actual oak tree, and it was just dirty and smelled like. So I can't even imagine the goodness that there is now. So it's a bummer, but
it's not worth your sobriety. Look, as somebody who, it's not, my dad is in recovery and he's been in recovery for almost 30 years. And he would do whatever, like and so it's not worth it. As wonderful as it is, your family, your friendships are way more important. But your character, right? You said you created that character when you were 17 or 18, and it really seemed authentic, right? It was like, it didn't seem like you were acting, which is as good a compliment as you can give an actor. How much of a challenge is it to play Jay now that you are sober?
Well, it started again even earlier than that. Like Clerks, when Kevin wrote Clerks, him and I had been hanging out for a few years. We met when I started hanging out when I was about 14, and then I used to help him at the Quick Stop doing newspapers. The Sunday paper was like, 20 different pieces of piles of paper. You had to make one big Sunday paper, and I used to go with them at 5:30 in the morning, and we bonded over Degrassi and doing the papers and silver spoons, and then we started going to comic book stores together, me, Walt Flanagan, Brian Johnson. Anyway, so I had known him for years, and I was super obnoxious. I had a weird sense of humor, and he always said, like, hey, man, you're funny. I think someone should put you in a movie. I wonder if other people find you funny. I wonder if other people would find that weird humor of yours funny. And then when he one day was like, hey, I'm going to make I wrote a movie. I wrote a character based on you and things you've said and done over the years. So Jay is written based on a 14, 15, 16-year-old Jason Mewes. And so besides selling weed, I never sold weed, but that sort of just gave us a reason to be hanging out in front of a store all day. So, but yeah, so I mean, it was based off me, and as the years went on, I feel like I got older, a little less obnoxious, or a little more obnoxious. I feel like I was a little more obnoxious during Mallrats, and that's why Jay's more like Snootchie Bootchies.
Well, thank you.
You just made Lewis's day.
You just made my day.
And then Chasing Amy, I talk about it being, who talks like that, snooch to the new. So, again, I think Kevin adapted the character to me. And now, speaking of, for me, I feel like, again, the Jay character likes to smoke and do his thing. So I really don't think it's affected the character, because even in Clerks 2, if you remember, the guy comes up, he goes, where you been? $15, little man. And then he's like, where you been? I was like, I got sentenced to 6 months in rehab. I was, and I'm sober now, and here's the holy fucking Bible, son. So Kevin, even when I got sober, in the beginning, when he was writing Clerks, he tied that in, that the actual character Jay was sober in the movie. So I don't feel like it's not hard. It's not a whole lot different. Me playing the character, being sober, the character being sober or not sober. It sort of just seems the same to me. So.
So I'm going to pivot here, and you and Kevin are appearing at the Emerald Cup later this month, which is the premier event for medical cannabis in the industry, and it advances a concept of sustainable outdoor farming. Full disclosure, they're our client. And we had Tim Blake on a couple months ago, who's the founder of the Cup and who's just awesome. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing there?
So I believe we are going to be doing some Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, and we've been touring with the podcast for like 8 years, and it's just depending on where we're at and what happens and all that. The show has its like the opening, and we tell a story, and we sort of catch up with each other. We play a game at the end. But again, it changes up with each state and venue and what's going on. So I'm sure we'll have some fun, and it's just me and Kevin really talking to each other and telling some funny stories and entertaining, and like I said, playing a game at the end, and so a couple audience members usually get to come up and participate in the show and all that stuff. So hopefully, it'll be fun.
You guys, not only have created these characters, you've also started to get into the world of creating a brand. What are you guys doing? What are you and Kevin doing in terms of actually making money in the cannabis world?
There's a bunch of different things. I'm really bad at keeping up with what is done in emotion. I know that some things I can't talk about. But I never really know. Again, luckily, usually I'm told when, like, all right, great, everything's in motion and we can talk about it. But like Kevin and I just went to a convention not too long ago, because we have some water pipes, and we have papers and grinders and trays with some, different ones. One has Buddy Christ on it. Some have Jay and Bob on it. Some have Boatman and Chronic on it.
Lewis, I know what I'm getting you for Hanukkah.
Yeah, Buddy Christ, please.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff they've been putting together and doing. So I believe that stuff is, all out there now. So, but I know that Kevin and I went to a convention, and we went to the company that's creating it, and we hung out at their booth and got to take photos and show some of the merchandise. So it was pretty dope.
You're a dad now. How old is your daughter?
She's 3.5. She'll be 4 April 1st.
Okay, so she's still little. How do you plan on talking with your daughter about, your history, with cannabis, but also your past drug history? Are you prepared to have that conversation yet?
I'm not. We have some time. I mean, I definitely have tried to show her little clips of the movie. She doesn't really get it yet. Just some of the fun clips, like us hanging out with the ape and stuff. I thought she'd dig. But I don't know. I don't know. I definitely am not. I think when I feel like she'll understand, I definitely will talk to her about it. I'm sure, like, when she gets in high school and they start teaching the kids about it and stuff and not to do it. I remember, like, I feel like I was a junior in high school or so when they had an assembly where in the gym they had some dude dressed up as a big doobie. And it was like, hey, man, hey, kids, you want to get high? And, like, the doobie was, like, dancing around, like, and they were just talking to you about, like, how, like, all the different drugs and be careful and all that stuff. So I feel like, there's definitely going to be a time where the school hopefully teaches her. And when I feel like she'll understand, I have no problem sort of
By that time, they're going to be teaching her how to roll a joint in school.
Exactly. I definitely want to inform her about me and about the harder drugs, because I definitely think it's something I want her to be stay away from and never try any type of opiates or any other drugs like that, because I'm hopefully not, but she could have the gene in her. I do feel like it's a genetic thing, because my mom was a dope fiend, and my sister, my brother, myself, we all use drugs, and so hopefully I want to teach her definitely early enough before there's ever someone offering her something harder than cannabis. So, but that I'm all about. I'm going to tell her I'm all about that as long as she does it safely. So.
You and Kevin have been painted kind of like the latter-day Cheech and Chong, right? I mean, Jay and Silent Bob are these iconic characters. Do you ever look back, or do you guys ever talk about what you guys have actually done to help normalize pot in culture? I mean, you guys you and Harold and Kumar, Cheech and Chong have this role in general culture. I mean, you guys ever talk about things like that, or am I just sound like an asshole?
For me, I feel like it's odd, when people, let's say, they're like, hey, man, can you do this thing? But you know what? I don't want you to do this because it's weird asking a movie star to do this. But for me, I don't feel like a movie star as much as an entertainer. And I would never, I feel uncomfortable when people say it to me. I would never say it about myself. Same with, like, it's hard for me to be like, yeah, man, do you know what we've done for people in the world, like, or whatever. Like, it's just hard for me to see myself or say stuff like that. I definitely, I like people over the years have told me, hey, I have a friend like you, or I have a cousin like you, and or you speak, the J character speaks his mind, and I feel like it's helped me shape my sense of humor, and I speak my mind instead of holding back. So I always think that's nice, and it's it's nice, but I just, again, it's always weird for me to say. It's like same with, like, Kevin always. If you notice, Kevin, when he makes movies, he never puts a movie by Kevin Smith. And he's made me aware of that too. Where I'm stoked. I just directed my
production, right?
Yeah, well, he just says it because he feels like, and I agree with them, is like, I just directed my first movie called Madness in the Method, and they said that to me right away. They're like, hey, do you want your name first? And we're going to put a movie by Jason Mewes. It's like, no, the movie isn't by Jason Mewes. It's by everybody. I don't do it all by myself. There's a DP, there's a set designer, there's a, locations person. Like, the movies are made by many people. So I'm just saying, I sort of feel that way in life. Like, I just feel weird being like, hey, I did this all by myself. I don't know. I don't know if that all makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Look,
we are all a function of the communities that we work and live in, and it's nobody's by themselves. I mean, we're all with people, and recognizing that's really important. But the only time that you're not with people is when you're doing stand-up, right? And you do stand-up now. I've tried it a couple times, and I absolutely suck. So, and I have no problem admitting I am not funny. What's it like? Like, when you're doing it, how did you decide to do it? How did you get involved? Like, take a moment and talk about the stand-up stuff that you're doing.
I definitely start off by saying I love it. How did I start? I'd say my wife was a big part of that. So I don't know if you know, Jordan is my wife, and Jordan is Kevin's business partner in Smyco. She runs Kevin's company. She's the one who has been booking and putting everything in order for the Jay and Silent Bob touring. Now for my touring, Amusing Stories. She produces the movie. She did produce Tusk and Yo-Gozer. She's going to produce, if all goes planned, knock on wood, Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so, she's a big part of all that. And she, like, Kevin and I do our podcast, but there's months where we don't get to do anything together because Kevin has, like, 3 other podcasts, Hollywood Babylon, An Evening with Kevin Smith, Fat Man on Batman, and all these other podcasts. So, like, he'd be touring with other stuff or out of town for something. And I wouldn't, my wife was like, look, it'd be nice if you could start going out doing other podcasts with people or maybe just doing your own stuff. And I had done a few things because, I started actually doing them at the comic book conventions. At the comic book conventions, they usually have panels where, like they'll have like the star, all the cast members of The Flash or what have you. And then, so they always have panels. And whenever I'd go to convention, they'd be like, do you want to sit and do a panel with a moderator? And I'd be like, you know what? I'd actually like Q&A more. So can I start doing that? And so I started doing Q&As at all the conventions, and I really started liking it more and more and more, and more and more and more. I would answer less questions and answer a question more with the story. And so that's when my wife was like, you should go out and do that. So when it started, it was more of me going to venues, not doing stand-up comedy because I don't tell jokes. I don't have a set, a 30-minute set of like, hey, what about them politics? Blah, blah, blah. It's nothing like that. It's me telling stories. And in the beginning, I do like 30 minutes of storytelling and then like 30 minutes of Q&A where I answer questions and give some really long, fun, entertaining answers. But now it's more, I've got it to where I don't normally answer any questions. I just straight up tell like a good 60 to 75 minutes of stories. So it's been a lot of fun, man. I really dig it. It's been like I've done maybe 30 or 40 venues now. And it's been awesome.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're right at that 30-minute mark, and we want to be respectful of your time. So is there anything else you want to plug or anything you want to say?
Yeah, and what's the name of your movie?
And when is that coming
my
out?
movie is Madness in the Method.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll be able to tweet social media like Facebook or something soon, like where you could see it, because right now we just finished, like the edit's done and there's some tweaking of the sound mix and all that, but it was really cool. I directed it. I acted in it, and we got a bunch of cool cameos from Stan Lee, Dean Cain.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Vinnie Jones, Judd Nelson, David Dashimas, I can't pronounce.
It could be one of Stan Lee's last cameos.
No.
Yeah,
no?
it was. I've had a really lot of cool people jump on board because they're like, "Wow, Mewes is directing. I want to be part of it." Because we didn't have a whole lot of money, of course. But also, I love that. So keep an eye out on that. Hopefully, in the next 2 to 3 months, it'll be somewhere for people to see, whether it be theaters or Netflix or Amazon or somewheres. But also keep an eye out on Facebook. One of my favorite things I've been doing besides the touring with the Amusing Stories is I've been streaming on Facebook video games. So that's, again, I apologize for the change of.
Yeah, you do Fortnite, right?
Yeah, well, I can do any games, but I keep winding up doing, like, even now I've been playing it. I'm like, all right, guys, I've been playing Fortnite every day for 3 weeks. Now I'm going to change it up. And then Thursday, the new season comes out, which I'm so excited about because they do the coolest things in Fortnite where they, like, literally, like, you could sit and join the game and watch the map transform in front of your eyes. Like, it's crazy. Like, meteorites fall or the cube explodes. And it's such a fun game.
My kids play it. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my 15-year-old will smoke your ass. My 12-year-old, not so much.
I know. I believe me, dude. I go on there, and I've been playing since the first week of April, so May, June, July, August.
I can't figure out how to play these games.
Yeah,
It's
like almost 8 months, and I just started. Now, I'm not saying I'm good, but I'm a lot better than I was. Like, now I get, now I'll get a few kills per game, where before I would go game after game without any kills. But anyway, yes, most of the kids, I can hear them. They'll join in my lobby sometimes, and they'll be like, hey, man, you suck. And they'll get like 10 kills. You know what I mean? And they're 12, 15. It's funny. I went to my nephew's, my wife's sister's son's, he's 9 years old, football game, and all the kids are 8, 9, 10 years old. And they won the game, and all of them started busting out emotes from Fortnite.
The floss. They all fucking floss, right? They do the...
It was amazing. It was amazing. But yeah, dude. So yeah, everybody keep an eye out on my Facebook for my stream for video games. I usually post saying, hey, I'm going to stream at 1 o'clock or what time it is. But yeah, so I've been streaming the Amusing Stories, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast, my movie Madness in the Method, and hopefully you'll see a new Jay and Silent Bob movie soon.
Awesome. And we'll have a link in our show notes to everything that Jay just mentioned.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I mean, we really appreciate you taking the time. And like I said at the beginning, I am a huge fan. And this is like...
I am too. I grew up in West Long Branch, New Jersey.
Yeah, we are two
Shore.
Jersey strong.
Did you grow up? Both of you grew up where?
I grew up in West Long Branch.
I grew up in
West Long Branch. Oh my gosh, that's a hop, skip, jump for me. And I used to go through there to get to the Monmouth Mall. I used to go through Long Branch. Oh yeah, girl.
Oh yeah.
Dang. No, I'm just kidding. Perfect, man.
man.
Well, thank you guys very, very much, and have a good day. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
Cool.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jason.
much, Jay. We really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye-bye. Our thanks to Jason Mewes. How cool was that? Like, I'm just still geeking out over it, but
You're such a nerd.
I'm such a nerd. He can be found on Twitter at JMews, JAYMEWS. You can check out his podcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. It's really excellent. Or you can go see them and meet them at the Emerald Cup coming up, and to visit us or communicate with us and to geek out over us or send me hate mail, because I love the hate mail. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter with the handle at KCSA_cannabis, or you can drop us an email at greenrush@kcsa.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the Green Rush in your favorite podcatcher. And that is one take, Shay. One take.